What you are about to see is a real thing. Welcome to Film Church Radio. Yeah, that accent is
it's something
quite
special.
a thing.
Yeah.
And pretty much everybody has that accent in the
Yeah.
movie, I feel like. But welcome to Film Church Radio, everybody. This episode is brought to you by Divine Intervention.
Nice. I thought we were going to go with something egg-related straight off the bat. I thought it was going to be the Eggman's special selection.
That would be a good one, too. This movie that we're about to talk about is, I would describe, quite the religious experience.
Yeah, it's unlike anything I've ever seen before, or even dreamt of before, I think.
Yeah. Hopefully no one's dreaming about anything going on in this movie.
Yeah, I was going to add, if I dreamt about it, I wouldn't be talking about it out loud. I don't think. It would be one of those things where, on dark nights, you'd be like, did I really dream that, or was that just something
Was I just watching Pink Flamingos? So before we get into this movie, we're going to talk a little bit about what this podcast is about. And I think we're going to kind of figure it out as we go along. But we're kind of loosely treating cinema like it's our religion. I feel like, I don't know, there's times in my life where I haven't been regularly watching movies, and I feel like something is drastically missing in my life.
Yeah.
And this is kind of to help us, well, me specifically, keep the practice up. I feel like you probably watch more movies than I do, but maybe not.
It changes.
Yeah.
I have gone through periods where I've watched, a lot of movies.
Yeah.
Just depending how life is. But yeah, I think that's definitely why we came up with this kind of idea, is that we wanted a weekly chance to get together and just talk about what we've been watching. Talk about movies, the cinema going experience, just the whole kit and caboodle, really.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of the cinema going experience, I feel like if you treat cinema as a religion, then an actual brick and mortar cinema is kind of like your church, right? That's your synagogue.
Yeah.
And there's been plenty of times where I've gone to the cinema, and especially like on opening night, like a Friday night packed house movie where you're sharing this experience of watching something for the first time with a bunch of other people who are watching the movie for the first time, can feel like a spiritual experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that, talking about these movie houses as like churches and stuff like that is, as soon as I found the Alamo Drafthouse here in Dallas, that was my place. Yeah, I can. Just the whole fact of like, if you talk, you get kicked out. I was like, great. Like, this is perfect. I'm not going to have to deal with people like whispering or shouting or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I'll go to other places and I'll be like, I'm glad I saw a movie, but it's not my place.
Yeah. Have you ever had to write on one of those cards and complain about someone?
No. As everyone who's listening can tell, I'm British, so we're very polite people. So I just kind of like look behind me at them briefly and then let it go. And then like internally deal with it for the rest of the show. That's how we deal with everything. Have you?
No, I've never had to. I mean, I feel, I'm from East Texas, man. Well, Texas too. Like Southern people, I feel like are very polite too. I don't know. There's a lot of assholes too.
I just think that, especially at the Alamo, like the noises that people make, which sounds a little weird, but like if they are like talking, it's normally at the screen.
Yeah, it's
like
a part of the experience.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you go, like, you can go to a movie, opening night with packed house, you sometimes want those noises.
Yeah.
You want those audience noises because it kind of sometimes lets you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a part of the experience. Like if a whole theater is busting out laughing in a certain part of the theater, you're like,
yeah,
these are my friends.
Exactly. Yeah, we get this. You know.
Yeah. So, this podcast is kind of just to hopefully a continuation of that spiritual experience
Yeah.
that you have in a theater and that you can now have by listening to us talk about our experiences watching movies every Sunday,
That's right. Yeah, like church.
like church,
Yeah.
or Saturday if that's when you go to church.
Yeah, or any day of the week when you
Yeah.
listen to it,
So I feel like this film is fitting for our first episode because it is, well, in relation to us specifically, we should we talk about the place that we work at, or should we just
We can
not
just-
mention it now and
Yeah. But
mention it some other time?
yeah, we work together.
We work together, not currently anymore, but that's how we met.
Yeah.
Was you hired me, and all we talked about was film.
I can still remember on the over the phone interview, and we talked about was it Richard Linklater?
Yeah, we talked about Richard Linklater a lot because I was, I think you asked me like kind of what genres or what type of films I was into, and I was like, well, I mean everything. I feel like I'm more into. I get hooked on a director, and I'll like try to watch as much of their stuff as possible, or like learn their process or their filmography, or learn kind of their filmmaking journey of where they started and where they went to. So I really have been enjoying people's first films a lot.
Yeah.
And Linklater, I don't know if Slacker was his first movie, but
I think so.
definitely his first kind of breakout movie.
Yeah.
It might have been his first feature. I'm not really sure, but
I think so, but could be wrong.
I know he had done a lot of short films before then. But when I started working with you, one of the first movies that you let me borrow was Multiple Maniacs,
It
and
sure
then
was.
Female Trouble,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed those movies a lot.
Yeah. So when I was at university, because I studied film, we did like a whole module on, I don't know if it was a full module, but like at least a few lessons on like midnight movies. And we talked about Pink Flamingos then, but we didn't watch it. We watched Polyester instead, which is a later John Waters film.
Interesting.
And I loved it. I loved the comedy. I loved just the idea of it, the spin that he put on this, like, on the home drama kind of thing. So when Criterion announced they were going to do some Waters films, I bought them straight away because I'd seen, I'd bought DVD copies of some of his other films as well, and yeah, I was like as soon as I learned that you were like an aspiring filmmaker and you had made films and stuff, I was like, you need to watch this John Waters film, because he literally just got his group of misfit friends together, wrote this crazy script, which I think he was on acid when he wrote it.
Yeah, and it was that one. Multiple Maniacs was, I want to say, 70. Was that when it came out?
Yeah.
So it was right after the Manson murders. So there's like Manson murder stuff in there, and I mean, John Waters is very much a hippie and stuff, and that was the Mansons was like the thing that your parents back then were like, see, this is why you shouldn't be a hippie.
Yeah.
And he was very much defiant of that. And I love Multiple Maniacs. Before we get into Pink Flamingos, I love Multiple Maniacs because it, well, like I said, I love people's first films, and that's not his first film either, but I guess it's his second one. But it's still it's very amateur, it's black and white, but he still was able to make something great out of the resources that he had, which wasn't much. It was just really just people and this crazy script.
Yeah. And a lobster costume.
And a lobster costume and this crazy actor that would just and multiple actors, I guess, that would just loved him enough to do whatever he told them to do.
Yeah. And we're just on the same page. We're just like, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. So, we might get back into more Multiple Maniacs later, but
yeah, so
we're gonna be talking about some crazy, like Pink Flamingos is notorious for being the nastiest, filthiest, grossest movie ever made. Mm-hmm. So if you have any issues with anything, don't listen to this episode. Maybe just skip to the next one.
Yeah.
But
and I think that the reason we chose it was because Waters is such a big part of our like communal film going at this point, and Pink Flamingos is one of those films that we just both hadn't seen. You know, it's not widely circulated, probably for multiple reasons. You know, and
it's like I enjoyed Multiple Maniacs so much, and then Female Trouble, and then I think I asked you after that. I was like, "Have you ever seen Pink Flamingos?" And you hadn't, and that was 3 years ago. So it's like 3 years later, we're starting a podcast, and we've done a couple of test episodes and talked about a few movies, but we were like, "What are we gonna do for our first one?" And as soon as I said Pink Flamingos, you were like, "Let's do it."
Yeah.
And then we had to commit. And, and you know,
there was definitely a point 50 minutes into that film where I was like, "Oh God, like I'm gonna have to talk about a lot of things that happen in this movie."
The movie for a long time it was just unrated, and you could get it in video stores and stuff. But eventually, I think somewhere in the 90s. The MPAA gave it an NC-17 rating, and it's rated NC-17 for extreme perversion shown in explicit detail.
Yeah. So I found a quote from John Waters that sums it up perfectly. So he said, pornography was also just becoming legal around the same time as Pink Flamingos, which left exploitation and art films with nowhere else to go. So I tried thinking up things that weren't illegal in film yet, but should be. That is the whole premise around this film.
Yeah, pretty much. Because I watched the commentary, and that was one of the things he said was it was like this strange time in cinema history where the Hays Code had just gotten out, or had just been done away with, right? Because that was gone in 1968. And then the MPAA, I guess, had formed, but they hadn't really started figuring out how to regulate things.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the first things he thought about for this film was, I want Divine to eat dog shit at the end of it.
Yeah.
That was his first thought. And
Poor Divine.
Yeah. and they didn't have any rules against eating dog shit because they never imagined that anybody would ever want to eat dog shit on camera.
I'm sure this is coming from the same people that didn't allow the film to show like a marital couple in the same bed. Right. So that was their level of like, let's try and keep these people as honorable as possible. Like this, the things that are shown in this film, I'm sure like they had no idea that anyone would ever try and put this on film ever.
Yeah. So it is very, it's pretty much like a porno, but not exactly. I mean, it's not a porno, but it's, I don't know. It's not, it's hard to describe this movie, but
the way that I saw it a lot is because there's a great documentary called like Midnight Movies, and it talks a lot about these like kind of sleeper hits that kind of got a big following at midnight in these like really small independent cinemas kind of thing. And that's the first time I heard of this. And I can remember, and it talked about, you know, the eating the shit scene and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm going to add this to my watch list because I want to see if this is as like crazy as this documentary makes out. And it is one of the only films I can think of that not only like reaches where I thought it was going to go, but surpasses it. Like I have never been, I was like, this is too, like at times I was like, this is too much for me.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, Multiple Maniacs and Female Trouble both have crazy stuff in it, right?
Yeah.
They have shocking just elements, right?
Yeah.
But, and so, I didn't expect to be as shocked as I was by Pink Flamingos.
Same.
You know, because the eating the dog shit is not the craziest thing to me that happens in the movie. Maybe at the time it was, but like in a world where the Jackass movies exist and Borat and stuff like that, it's like they do crazy shit in those movies too. But this movie still managed to shock the fuck out of me.
Yeah. And I think that once that scene comes along, you're so deflated from the whole. Like, I was just like on the couch, just like, oh my God, like, I cannot believe I've seen the things that I've seen. That when that scene rolls around, you're like, okay, like, of course that happens. You know, it's not one of those things where you hear about this scene and you watch this whole movie and that's the only thing that's like really shocking in it. Everything else is pretty mild. This, from the off, is like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, actually, the movie is kind of slow going at first.
Yeah, I mean,
when it starts, because especially if you've seen other John Waters movies, you're like, and you know anything about this movie, if you know that it's the most shocking movie ever made, it starts off and you're like, this is weird, but it's not gotten crazy yet. It's kind of a slow build to the weirdness, and then it's just nothing but shocking, crazy shit, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think that even the most shocking things are kind of overshadowed. Like the fact that they kidnap women and impregnate them to sell the babies to like lesbian and gay couples is not even something that like stuck with me afterwards. It wasn't until like I went back to it, like writing my notes, I was like, oh yeah, that is how the film starts. That is how we are introduced to the marbles.
Right. Well, and it's, I mean, even the subject, like even the plot and the subject matter of this movie, I feel like isn't, I mean, yeah, it's crazy and disgusting, but they deal with this kind of stuff in other movies, right?
Yeah.
Lots of movies deal with kidnapping and rape and incest and like all kinds of fucked up realities that exist in our world. But I think the thing that is disturbing about watching this movie is that it's still made by amateur filmmakers and amateur actors, which that's not to say that I don't think they're brilliant. That's just to say that when you're watching it, you feel like you're watching a documentary. You feel like these people are real, and it's disturbing. Whereas like if you watch I don't know, this movie comes to mind, a movie called Don't Breathe, about like a blind guy whose home gets broken into and then he kills a bunch of kids. Well, there's like a scene in that movie where he's got like a turkey baster full of semen and he's gonna like inject it into this girl. And yeah, it's disgusting, but it's like filmed in a cinematic way. You know, you got a close up of the thing, and then you got, the lighting is all cinematic. It like there's this.
And
it's not real,
Yeah.
but you're there to be shocked and scared or whatever. Whereas like in a movie like Pink Flamingos, there's no style except filth.
No, yeah, there's no camera trickery, there's no like props. Everything is there and everything happened, which is one of the most haunting things. And just that he knew, the sheer fact that he knew these people enough to put them all in a film blows my mind. Like, if I was to say to anyone, hey, do you have any disgusting talents? None of, like, I don't think, out of my friendship group, I would know any. Whereas every single person in this has some kind of bizarre, like,
thing that they do or will do. It just goes to show how dedicated everyone was and how much they believed in John Waters to just do some of these scenes. Like I will say that so I watched this movie, just talking about like the experience of watching it. I watched this movie with my friend Taylor, and I'm glad that I did, because I think it's the kind of movie that you should watch with people.
I did not have that experience. So
it's like one of those movies where it's, if you've got a group of friends and you want to have, this crazy experience together of watching something that is just, I mean, it would be like getting together with your friends and watching Jackass. It's kind of the same idea of like, hey, let's watch something that's going to freak everyone out and shock everyone. And everyone, knows that that's what they're getting going into it. But there's a quote from John Waters in the commentary where he said, I think you mentioned this, he tried to shock people but make them laugh at being shocked, right? So while there are a lot of disturbing elements, there's kind of this weird like laughability to it, and that's the point. Is like it's supposed to get to that point where it's so disturbing and weird that you just laugh at it.
Yeah.
And there was a ton of times where me and Taylor were just busting out laughing. Specifically, the whistling anus was just like we were not prepared for. We had already been disturbed by several things in the movie that when that came on, it just was like, of course this is what's happening right now. We just busted out laughing, and then it goes on and it just zooms in.
I know, it goes on for so long. So long. Yeah.
And John Waters in the commentary, he said years later he asked the actor if he ever gets recognized from that movie, and he said, "No, nobody was looking at my face." But while most of the stuff in the movie was just, I had a good time just laughing at it. There was a scene in the movie that I just was not a fan of. It really did disturb me, and it's the scene with the chicken.
Yeah.
And it's like, putting filth and grotesque stuff in movies is I love that kind of stuff to a point. It's like if everybody is like, if everything is consensual, I guess. If everybody is like, we're gonna do let's do this crazy freaking thing for this crazy movie. But that chicken didn't have a choice in that.
No. They just got included into this very bizarre sex scene and then died on camera.
And it was like, I mean, they weren't actually fucking the chicken. They were simulating fucking the chicken, but they were, the chicken dies.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
quite horrifically as well, not just.
And I keep thinking about that scene because I'm like, not necessarily trying to make excuses for the filmmakers, but it's like that was 1972.
Yeah.
Even in today's standards, people just pick up chickens and they wring their necks off. Like that's how they kill chickens, or chop their heads off. And it takes a while for a chicken to die. And it's like I've never killed a chicken, but I've seen people kill chickens. Like I've heard about people killing chickens. I mean, I come from families of farmers and stuff like that. So, it's not like a foreign thing to me, but it's just, it's like so unnecessary. It's just so unnecessary. And John Waters in the commentary, he was like, basically like saying that chickens don't have good lives. He's like, what's a good chicken's life? And we ate that chicken afterwards.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm like, all right, well, I still don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, that's not really for you to, like, judge, I'm sure as chicken lives go, it was a pretty good life,
right up until the end.
Yeah, until he, unwittingly got plucked from the patch, I'm sure. I think there was the scene that really offset me. I mean, the singing anus thing was a lot to kind of to take in, especially because I feel like that party has a lot. It's kind of, for the most part, that is the most outlandish bit. She gets like a pig's head as like a gift, and then these policemen show up and they like kill them and eat them, and that's kind of like that's the most, I would say, like movie part of the film, like fictional, I guess, part of the film is like when they eat the police officers.
Yeah.
And that comes straight in the middle of it, and I just felt it was so like, it was a lot. And then the scene after that when they break into the Marbles house and are licking everything, that again for me was like, I didn't think just like licking furniture would be
So disturbing.
Yeah.
Could be so disturbing.
Yeah, and even the scene that follows that when the marbles return home is really funny. Like the furniture rejecting them because they've been licked.
They've been licked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the whole it was.
John Waters was talking about he just genuinely believes that you can go into someone's house and lick their furniture and it will actually curse them, and that was like what he was trying to do in the movie, was showing that like they lick the furniture and then the furniture is now cursed and it rejects them, and he's like, I mean, part of it might just be his theatrics. He's a very theatrical person, so a lot of the stuff that he says is probably, he says things to be shocking. So who knows if he actually believes that? But he did talk about how and when he recorded this commentary, it was 1998, I think. So even it's been 20 years since then. Yeah. But he said that the woman who lived in the house now would get letters constantly and fan mail, and then finally she watched Pink Flamingos and saw them licking all the furniture and like the banister, and it's the same banister in her house, and it just totally freaked her out.
No, I bet it did. Yeah, I mean,
very. I mean, that kind of stuff is just. It's disturbing. It's meant to be disturbing, but it's just so funny.
Yeah,
it's just so funny.
I mean, I want to talk about the comedy elements of it, because I think that some of, especially Mink Stoll's lines, the way that she delivers them, are just brilliant. And Mink Stoll plays Connie Marble, so
okay, yeah.
The other people that are vying for the filthiest people alive award that this local newspaper just happens to deem divine. Right. It's just in the front of the newspaper that she's the filthiest person alive. And Mink Stoll, I wrote down one of her quotes that I love. And it's, I guess there's two kinds of people, Miss Sandstone. My kind of people and assholes. It's rather obvious which category you fit into. And I just and it's just such a good put down. But the fact that all these actors are amateurs at this point, the delivery is just that little bit off. It's a little bit wooden, I feel, for everybody.
Very straight.
And it just makes it so much funnier to me.
Yeah.
That they are, it's obviously scripted. But yeah, I think Mink Stoll is probably one of the best things in this in terms of her portrayal of Connie Marble. Mm-hmm. And Divine is incredible too.
Yeah, I feel, I love everybody in the movie. I feel like everyone does, for not having much acting experience, does such a great, I mean, you believe everyone. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, David Lockery, I think is great in the movie and disgusting and has his own perverted thing going on. Yeah,
just that B plot where he's flashing women to steal their purses.
And, everything is just over the top. It's like they've got their pubes are the same color as their hair. Yeah. But what's the one lady? Edith.
Oh, Edith Massey.
Edie.
Yeah, and Edie.
She's one of those people where, the first time I saw her was in Multiple Maniacs. Yeah. And the first time I saw her, I was just like, not to be rude. I don't want to be rude, but she's a character. You know what I mean? And she's obviously just somebody that he met one day and was like, "You're amazing. I want to put you in a movie." Yeah. And she does have this amazing quality about her that is very unique and just a character, Yeah. And she's in so many of his movies. It's awesome to me that he befriended all of these people, this group of kind of misfits. Yeah. This group that you would never think would, I don't know, in today's society, it's just cool to see just a weird group of people come together and make something.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what kind of I was saying earlier. It's just, where did he find all these people? Right. I know that they were all kind of from Baltimore. But yeah, just it's such an incredible group of people.
Yeah.
Especially for them all to just, like we've said before, like accept his vision and just be like, yep, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
You know, is incredible. And I think, lightning only really strikes once, and that's what brought them all together.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Aunt Edie is amazing. Just her single obsession about eggs is the thing that I remember the most. Like, I just every time, like where she's just like, what will happen if there's no eggs? And like there's this whole like scene where they're just talking about like chickens, and if there's no chickens, there's no eggs, and she gets so upset about it, and then she gets wheeled away by the Eggman because he loves her. Mm-hmm. And it's just...
There's a very romantic kiss involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like, where does he come up with this stuff?
Yeah, maybe one day she was just eating an egg and he was like, oh, that's gross. Cool.
I'm going to put that in a movie.
Yeah.
Well, he mentions that, like, I mean, obviously milkmen were a thing back in the day. But eggmen were actually a real thing, too. And probably not quite like that, where he's got quite the selection of eggs to choose from. But
I was relieved when she was wheeled out, because I was like, I really hope this is the last mention of eggs in this film.
You're so tired of hearing about eggs.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's just her whole vibe, like that's all she talked about.
Well, she's just a strange character. It's like, but a brilliant one, I feel like, because she's supposed to be Divine's mother, right?
Yeah.
But she's like a baby. Like her dialogue and her mind is like a baby. She sits in a playpen.
Yeah. Well, doesn't the narrator call her mentally ill at the beginning?
I guess, maybe. See, there's parts of this movie that I've like, I did not follow the plot very well. I will say.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think it matters. Like the only plot points I can think of is the marbles realize that they're not the filthiest people alive. They want to try and track down Divine. They send her some poop in a box, and then they die. That is literally the plot. Like there's nothing else to it, you know, apart from all this crazy stuff that he just injects into it. Yeah, but I think to say that this film is as shocking as it is, the portrayal of mentally ill people and homosexuals is not great,
right?
At all. Yeah. Like even because I always think as Waters as being quite progressive, especially using a man in drag as his like leading lady, you know. But I think it's not Cotton. What's the model's like helper called who impregnates all the slaves?
Yeah, he's like the butler guy.
Yeah, but he literally gets locked in a closet when he cross-dresses.
Yeah,
and to me that was like, this is, it's not what I came to expect from Waters.
Right. Well, yeah, I don't think he at the time was thinking about that. I think he was just trying to literally freak people out, and he had made a couple of movies, but he wasn't John Waters yet, and Divine wasn't even Divine when he made this movie.
Yeah.
And Divine, so I think he knew that this was going to be the film that would make him famous, and that's why he made it, was so that he could become famous and then do whatever he wanted after that. And the reason, so he, the vibe I got from the commentary was that, even Divine didn't really understand or think that she was going to become so famous after this film. Yeah. But he was like, this is why we're doing it. We're going to become famous. And that's, so he didn't draw any lines anywhere. That's for sure.
Exactly.
But I like, it's hard to say. I feel like he's had a big impact. It's hard to say where he's at now. now he does like a lot of stand-up and stuff. I think
Yeah.
he does a lot of live shows, and
Yeah.
he's not really making films anymore. But I do want to see like his later films. I know I've seen Cry Baby at some point, but it was before I had seen any of his other stuff, so I didn't.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate it, and it's been years, so I don't even remember much about the film. But then he's got even stuff after that people talk about, and
Yeah.
I'm curious about.
Yeah,
the
same.
kind
I
of
haven't.
films he's made with studio money,
Yeah, I haven't seen like Cecil B. Demented or Serial Mom or Pecker or anything like that. I haven't seen any of those. It's been mostly his like earlier, trashier stuff. But I think his career is just a perfect example of what you can do. You know, he started off just making these trashy kind of very minimal like handheld camera kind of films, used them as a platform to get his name out there, and then progressed with it. You know, he could have easily have tried to, like, his next film after Pink Flamingos, he could have tried to top it, but instead he made like a more reserved, kind of more of a character study in Female Trouble. And it's still got those
he knew
hints.
that he wasn't going to be able to top it anyway.
I mean, how could you? Like, there is no way that you could, unless it's, unless it is watching someone murder somebody else. That is the only way that I would have been shocked by something else.
Yeah, like a real life murder on camera. Or
Yeah,
something.
like it was getting to the point where everything they showed would have been very illegal.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I don't think
Nobody wants to see that.
No. Nobody wants to see most of the things that are in this film. But we have. And it's ingrained in our memory for forever.
Will you ever watch this movie again?
This is a question I've been thinking about a lot. Okay, because next year, I think, is it the 50th anniversary next year? So there's been a lot of talk for a while that there's a new restoration coming out. And this has been going on for like 10 years. And I can very strongly envision Criterion putting out something next year. If that's what the holdup is, because I know that Warner had the rights or whatever. If it comes out on Criterion, and if it's like this big extravaganza, then I will watch it again.
Yeah.
If it's on TV, I will not watch it again. I don't think.
If it's on TV, they probably wouldn't show it on.
No, but if it was like on a streaming site and I was just kind of flicking through, I'd probably be like, yeah, I don't really want to watch that tonight. You know.
Yeah.
But again, this is what's so incredible about it, is that not only will I kind of not actively seek it out to watch it anytime soon, I cannot stop talking about it to friends.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those you might watch it again if you're showing somebody else the movie.
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to be, because that's kind of been my thing with Multiple Maniacs and I've probably watched it like 4 times, and it's always been someone who didn't know who John Waters was.
Yeah.
And knew nothing about the movie, and I was like, watch this.
Yeah. If it gets re-released and it's in cinemas, I'll go and see it with an audience.
That would be fun.
Because I know that's how it kind of became popular, was all these people had seen the film at midnight, like could quote it word for word.
Yeah.
You know, it became like The Room is now, I guess, for kind of our generation.
Better acting in this movie.
100%. But I would definitely go and see it in like a packed cinema, because I think that would be where it would be elevated to the next level.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's the case for a lot of his earlier films. Yeah. Like you said, I think the more people that you watch it with, the better it is.
Yeah.
And that's the joy of cinema, right? Like, 2 different experiences. I'll probably go and love it the next time. I mean, love's a strong word, but, really enjoy it next time.
It's a communal experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like church.
Yeah. Because you said you watched it with a friend. I did not. I watched it alone, and my wife was sleeping in the next room, and there was points where I was like, please don't come in, because I don't want you to see me watching this movie alone. So, in the middle of the day, So...
That's what I do for fun.
Yeah. So, I am... I would love to see it with other people.
Yeah. For sure. I'm trying to think of what Oh, speaking of his stand-up, well, I started watching one of his with John Waters stand-ups.
Yeah.
And he, it kind of started off like a church. Like there was like this,
Yeah.
organ, holy music kind of like playing in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then he called himself the Filth Elder.
Nice.
No,
Well,
it's
he's been
like-
called the Pope of Trash. Isn't that his like nickname?
That's another one,
Yeah.
yeah. So another reason why I think this
Yeah.
was a fitting first choice.
Yeah. 100%. I think I was so in preparation for this. I'm a big reader of Sight and Sound magazine from England. So I went back through their archives and kind of looked around the same time, and I found something from their 1976 winter issue that says whether one appreciates Pink Flamingos or not, the trash aesthetic affects many more significant filmmakers that this small American lunatic fringe. Their words, not mine. You find the same sort of defiant, stop at nothing, everything but the kitchen sink attitude very frequently. And I think that's why this film is so much more than just shock. I think it shows what was happening in America at the time.
Yeah.
This complete abandon of all rules, and
Yeah.
like these filmmakers had been let free.
Right.
It's like even porn is kind of now shown to an audience in a cinema. So you can go and do whatever you want to do.
Right.
And it's the first, and I mean, he did it, 4 years after, and he made the most disgusting, trashy film ever.
Yeah, and
Straight
it's
off the
like,
bat.
and obviously, like as a society, we've dialed it back quite a bit since then. And
Yeah.
So now, even 50 years later, this movie is still
Yeah,
shocking,
yeah. And
and it still works. Like
Yeah.
the point, that's why he made it, and it still works for its shock value. It still holds up.
yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like when Deadpool came out, that was, I mean, it's been like 5 years since then, but
Yeah.
I feel like that movie, like there was so much hype around it. It's going to be a rated R
Yeah, superhero.
genre movie, and I just remember watching it and thinking that was it.
Yeah.
Like that was
Yeah.
that was there. Wait, where was the? I really expected it to kind of push the boundaries
Yeah.
a little bit. I know you're confined by even rated R stuff, but I expected them to kind of push that line a
Yeah.
little more. Now I can enjoy the movie just for like, Ryan Reynolds is
Yeah.
great as Deadpool, and it's a fun movie. But I just kept expecting something I had never
Yeah.
seen before, and
Yeah.
it was really just all stuff I had seen before, and now it's in a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I was kind of alluding to earlier, the fact that like you hear stories about these things and it's never what you expect it to be, whereas this is like times 1,000. The
Yeah.
things I saw in this film I was not ready for at
Yeah.
all.
And I feel like this came at the right time in like my filmmaking or cinephile like movie watching
Yeah.
life is, if I had seen this 10 years ago, I probably would never have watched another John Waters movie.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, you would have like assumed everything was going to be like this.
Yeah.
And as soon as like this was over, I sat with it for a few days and I was like, is it just like, have I just outgrown John Waters now? Because I just didn't have the same experience as I did with his other films. I
Yeah.
was more kind of uncomfortable than I was laughing.
Well, see, that's. I mean, I was laughing during the movie, but
Yeah.
definitely the next morning, I was still digesting it. I was
Yeah.
like, why do I feel?
Dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, why do I feel like
exactly,
a
yeah.
terrible person, or
Yeah.
like there's something wrong with the world, or So it's probably a natural feeling.
So I went
after
back and
watching
watched
it.
Female Trouble like 2 days later because I was like, I just want to make sure that like he's not ruined for me now.
Yeah.
And Female Trouble is still amazing.
Yeah.
Like, so and then the more research I did around it, the more I realized that this was what he was going for. He wanted you to feel that way.
Yeah.
And the reason his other films aren't like that because he can't top it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we said before. So,
It was a very specific thing he was trying to do. He accomplished
Yeah.
it, and there was no reason to like try to do that again.
yeah. And I'm so glad it's off my to watch list now.
Yeah.
Because I did feel like it was like this, like albatross around my neck I just, I hadn't seen it. I had no way to see it. It wasn't like I'd bought it. It was just sitting on my shelf waiting for me to put it in the DVD player. It was like I didn't own it. I didn't know where to find it. You look on Amazon, you can't really find a good copy.
Well, see, that's why I hadn't really watched it yet.
Yeah.
Was because, I mean, I looked it up whenever we were talking about, when we first started working together, we were talking about John Waters and stuff. And it wasn't available anywhere, so I just kind of didn't look again.
Yeah.
And then even when we talked about watching it for this, I started looking, and it, for whatever reason, when you search on like where to watch platforms that'll show you the streaming stuff, like Criterion usually doesn't come up if it's on there. So luckily one of us got on there and searched for it, and it's on Criterion channel right now. I don't know how much longer it'll be there, but as of this recording podcast, if you want to watch it, that's where it is.
And it was one of those things, it was meant to be, because I follow Criterion on Twitter and stuff, and it kind of popped up that they were doing like 3 films by John Waters, and they've released 3 themselves. So I was like, it's probably going to be those films. So I kind of had a quick look just to see if it was, and it was Multiple Maniacs, Pink Flamingos, Female Trouble.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, Pink Flamingos is on there. Not having seen it, I was like, oh my god, I need to see this. And then you mentioned watching it for the podcast, and I was like, incredible. Like, I was probably going to try and watch it anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that you watched it as well.
Yeah.
So we could, we had a reason to carry on watching it.
We could process it together, and yeah.
But it's it's an experience.
It is very much an experience. And if you've never seen a John Waters movie, I wouldn't start with this.
No.
I would start with Multiple Maniacs. I mean, that's what I'd started with, so I'm probably just, I feel like I had a good experience with that movie. And the great thing I think about Multiple Maniacs as a starter John Waters movie, or getting into his films, is because the opening it kind of lets you know that what you're about to watch is a spectacle of filth.
Yeah.
Because it starts with the Lady Divine's cavalcade of perversions.
Yeah.
And then, they're showing all this crazy, nasty stuff. And then the people who are the audience that is in the movie watching what's going on are just disgusted by everything.
Yeah.
And that's the point, you know? And so it's like a good introduction to his other stuff, because the rest of the John Waters stuff you watch, you're supposed to be sitting there going, ew.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and he grew up in like 1950s America, post-war, very like family values and all that kind of stuff, very middle America. And this is just his take on it. Yeah. Like, this is kind of his take down the whole early part of his career, is like the whole family values thing is just like this is my family, as opposed to like the mum, dad, 2 kids.
Yeah,
it's like, no, there's a mentally ill, egg obsessed woman in a cage, and then there's a mother and a son. The mother is a cross-dressing man, and they lick furniture. And that's kind of like his take on it. Which
well, I was texting Zach after I had watched the movie, and I didn't know what to say about it. I was like, well, I watched it. I knew he had seen it already.
Yeah.
And I think I just said I watched it, and then was like ... And and then I was just like, I don't really know what it was about or what to think about it. And he said, it's about family.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean,
it's about family.
Yeah. And the thing I found the funniest was after they, spoiler alert, kill the marbles, and they're like, let's go to Boise. And they are so excited for this trip to Boise. And I don't know why that tickled me so much. And Crackers is like, can we live in like restroom, like truck stop restrooms? And she's like, yeah, we can definitely do that. And that really got me. I thought that was hilarious. And then obviously the dog shit scene comes, and you're like, oh, okay.
Here we go.
Yeah, here it is.
But like you said, like at that point, you're just like, all
desensitized enough. You're just like, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Craziness.
Oh my gosh! And I wanted to ask, all the outdoor scenes are put to music. Do you think that was because of the background noise, and he couldn't control the sound for that?
I
'Cause
mean,
I noticed it more and more whenever they went outside. There was some kind of soundtrack, apart from I think the kangaroo court scene when they were in the middle of the wood. Anyway.
I didn't really notice that. So I don't really have any thoughts about it. I don't think. I mean, he didn't mention it in the
Yeah.
commentary, other than like he just tried to find stuff that he felt like music that he felt was as filthy
Yeah.
as the movie
Okay.
to try to put it in there.
Yeah.
But I mean, like there's a point in the beginning where they're walking through the woods, and it's close to the beginning. That reminded me of Multiple Maniacs, like the scene after they're in the tent, and then they're like walking and talking next to the woods, and then they just walk to the car and get in the car. There's just like music playing
Yeah.
while they're walking, and Divine is like crossing the street and stuff. And it feels like intro music. It feels like, okay, now the movie is starting.
Yeah.
And I've kind of got the same vibe, because a few scenes had happened, but then it's like, then you just have like some kind of music, and there's nothing really going on.
Yeah.
People are just walking. It feels like, okay, now the movie is starting.
Okay.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what he was going for, but
Maybe.
yeah.
Yeah. It was just one of those things that struck me as kind of, there would be these big dialogue scenes, and then there would be, 30 seconds of some kind of pop song from the 60s or 70s while they were outside, and then it was like, back in the caravan,
Yeah.
and the music's gone.
Might be something I'll have to pay attention to next time. Because I only watched it once, and I was not exactly critically analyzing it.
Yeah.
I was just kind of being
Watching it.
shocked.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Sweet. I think leading on from family as well, just Waters himself says that it's dedicated to the Manson girls,
Yeah.
which I know, I can't remember where I read it or heard it, but he said if he was to make it again, he wouldn't.
Yeah, he
Dedicated to them
mentions that
again?
in the commentary.
Yeah.
He's like, I wouldn't say that, but it's not for the reasons you might think
No.
exactly.
No.
It's because he feels like that would be not good for their case.
Yeah, which is not like, it wouldn't outrage people. Like, he doesn't care. It's, they don't want the case to see that.
Well, he even mentioned it, I think in the commentary, it might have been something else I was watching, that like he went to a lot of the Manson trials and stuff when that was happening, and they filmed Pink Flamingos right after the trials, and a lot of his movies have like a trial at the end. But he mentioned that, speaking with some of the Manson girls, that telling them like, you guys just got in with the wrong family.
Yeah.
Like if he's like, you're kind of just like us. If you guys have just, done this stuff on camera and faked it instead of doing it in real life, your life would be different. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of,
exactly. Yeah.
probably true.
It's all those,
Which
trading
kind of
places.
speaks to the same idea of like, I mean, there's been lots of talk over especially the past like 10, 15 years about video game violence and how, whether or not that affects real violence.
Yeah.
And, it's like better pretend than do it for real.
Yeah, exactly. And, give people credit. It's not, just because somebody has this game on their or this film or whatever in their collection does not mean that they were emulating it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think this film shows that that there wasn't a lot of people demanding eggs after the film. So
Oh man.
I'm sorry I keep coming back to that. I just
Eggs.
I can't can't get it out of my head. And the way that she says crackers, I don't know what it is, but it's just ingrained in my memory. Like every time I doing research again, like every time I read crackers, it was just her being like crackers, So oh my god.
Yeah, there's certain things that not that one didn't really stick with me, but just like the narration from John Waters and the way I feel like the way him and Divine talk is very similar. Like they've got the same kind of accent.
Yeah. Divine is just so matter of fact. Like some of the words that she says, like, are just so to the point, which I love. I think that's so funny.
Yeah.
He's wonderful in this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Reason he became famous after this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he like Waters mentioned that he had a hard time, well, for the rest of his life, separating himself from the character because everyone always assumed that Divine was really like that.
Yeah. And if you've seen any interviews with him not as Divine, he's so mild-mannered and like soft-spoken and just,
pretty polite.
Yeah, you wouldn't like pick him out on the street kind of thing.
There he is, the filthiest person alive.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But
well,
yeah, that was Pink Flamingos.
That was Pink Flamingos.
Yeah.
Next week, we're going to be watching Badlands, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Terrence Malick.
Yeah, that was my choice.
I've never seen a Terrence Malick film.
Neither have I. And that was kind of the reason behind it. I'm a massive fan of In Cold Blood, both the book and the film. And I think it just came up while I was like watching that, like someone, who was on kind of the same kind of lists or something like that. So yeah, I added it to my watch list. I was like, let's do that. I've never seen a Terrence Malick film, and I want to talk about it with someone. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I've never seen one either, and I think it'll be a good introduction to it. I don't know really anything about this movie.
No.
I don't know much about him as a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. All I know is that he's got high praise from a lot of other filmmakers and film people. But yeah, that's the point of kind of doing this thing is to learn and grow and see stuff we've never seen before,
and we are both lovers of film. Yeah. So I don't think it's going to be a podcast where we necessarily like hate on films.
No, we're always probably going to find something good in the movies where we might not always, think it's the greatest movie we've ever seen or even enjoy the movies, but we'll probably find something great about them.
Exactly.
And when it comes to Pink Flamingos, it's one of those movies where I don't know. It's fun to recommend stuff to people sometimes. So it's like the more film knowledge you have, if somebody's like, I want to watch a movie with a group of friends and freak them all out, and they all want to be freaked out. I can be like, oh, watch Pink Flamingos.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and and I think that how we're going to do it in terms of like each week is I think we're just going to take it in turns, right? So like you'll pick one, then I'll pick one, then you pick one, and we'll and it doesn't necessarily have to be something we both haven't seen, just maybe something we want the other person to see, or we really want to like knock off our to watch list and
something that's next in our spiritual journey.
Yeah, if there's,
spiritual cinematic journey, whatever you want to call it. But and sometimes that might be something that we love that we haven't seen in a long time that we need to revisit.
Yeah. And the other part of this is trying to broaden horizons. I'm very much American like genre films. And I don't want to be pigeonholed by that anymore. Yeah. So I might be suggesting films from all over the world, different time periods, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah. Which is awesome because I feel like I'm at a point where I want to see, just a broader films, just stuff that's foreign films, I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp of film history now, but it's like there's so much more than the hits.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so much more than just what everyone was seeing at the time. There's stuff that didn't get discovered till years later, or just had a small audience for years, and stuff that filmmakers recommend that is their favorite thing that nobody else has seen. So I think we're gonna find lots of good stuff.
For sure.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be real good.
Cool. Well, I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think that's our first episode.
How exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah, so bear with us. We are still,
Figuring it out.
Yeah, exactly.
If anybody, at some point we'll probably have take suggestions from people.
Yeah,
The audience and stuff like that. But yeah, until next week, next Sunday.
Yeah.
In the words of Divine, kill everyone now. Condone first-degree murder. Advocate cannibalism. Eat shit.
Not necessarily in that order.
All right. See y'all next Sunday.
Have a good week.